It was an unusually quiet afternoon in a quaint suburban neighborhood, where the streets seemed frozen in time. The gentle hum of distant traffic was barely audible, and the only movement came from leaves swaying lazily in the breeze. Police officers Michael and Edward, seated in their patrol car, were meandering through the peaceful streets, their eyes scanning for any signs of disturbance. But there was none. The day had been uneventful, too uneventful for their liking. The sun was high in the sky, its golden rays bouncing off the windows of neatly aligned houses. Birds chirped melodiously from the trees lining the sidewalks, adding a sense of serenity to the scene. Edward yawned loudly, stretching his arms in boredom. "I swear," he said, breaking the silence, "if I don't see some action today, I'm going to fall asleep." Michael chuckled, glancing over at his partner. "Relax, Edward. Not every day can be like the movies. Some days, we're just caretakers of peace." Their conversation was interrupted when Michael's gaze fell on an elderly woman walking down the sidewalk. She wasn't merely walking, she was struggling. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as though her body was waging a silent battle against the forces of gravity. Her left leg seemed stiff, barely able to bend, and she leaned heavily on a wooden cane that looked as weathered as she did. "Now what do we have here?" Michael muttered, nudging Edward. Edward turned to look. "Oh, wow," he said, his lips curling into a smirk. "She's moving like she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders." Michael laughed, his voice cutting through the stillness of the afternoon. "Maybe she's practicing for a snail marathon," he quipped. Their laughter grew louder, a sound so out of place in the tranquil neighborhood that it seemed almost jarring. What they didn't realize was that their mocking voices carried to the woman. She stopped mid-step, her frail frame trembling as she turned to look at them. Her face was a mixture of confusion and hurt, her eyes searching theirs as if trying to understand what she had done to deserve such ridicule. For a moment, she stood frozen, gripping her cane tightly. Then, summoning all the courage she could muster, she called out to them. "Why are you laughing at me?" Her voice was soft, yet trembling, each word laced with pain. "I've done nothing to deserve this mockery." But instead of feeling remorse, Michael and Edward exchanged amused glances. Michael leaned out of the window and said, "Oh, lighten up, Grandma. We're just having a little fun." The woman's heart ached at his words, but she wasn't ready to back down. She took a shaky step forward, her grip on the cane tightening as if it were her anchor. "You call this fun?" she asked, her voice rising. "Mocking an old woman trying to get by? You're supposed to be protectors of the people, not bullies." Her defiance seemed to irritate Edward, who crossed his arms and leaned back in his seat. "Lady, you're taking this way too seriously. We're just joking around. Go on with your day and leave us alone." But the woman stood her ground. "I may be old," she said, her voice gaining strength, "but I have rights. You cannot treat me like this. I will not be silenced." Her boldness caught them off guard. For a moment, they were silent, their smirks faltering. But Michael quickly recovered, his expression hardening. "You're causing a scene," he said coldly. "If you don't move along, we'll have no choice but to take action." "Action?" the woman repeated, her voice now steady and unyielding. "Go ahead. Do what you must. But I will not let you disrespect me without consequences." Their patience snapped. They got out of the car, their boots crunching against the gravel as they approached her. Michael grabbed her arm roughly, his grip firm despite her protests. "That's enough," he said. "You're coming with us." The woman's cries filled the air as they forced her into the back of the patrol car. Her tears streamed down her wrinkled cheeks, but she held her head high, refusing to let them break her spirit. When they arrived at the station, the atmosphere was tense. Officers stopped and stared as Michael and Edward marched in with the elderly woman in tow. The station's captain, a man known for his stern demeanor but fair judgment, emerged from his office to investigate the commotion. The moment his eyes fell on the woman, his expression changed. Shock, anger, and disbelief flashed across his face. "Mother?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Michael and Edward froze, their confidence evaporating in an instant. They looked at each other, then back at the captain, their faces pale with realization. The captain strode toward them, his eyes blazing. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice trembling with fury. "Do you even understand who this is?" Edward stammered, We didn't know, sir." "Didn't know?" the captain roared. "That's your excuse? You humiliated and arrested an innocent woman without cause. And now you're telling me you didn't know she was my mother? That doesn't change the fact that you treated her with utter disrespect." The room was silent as the captain turned to his mother, his expression softening. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked gently, his voice filled with guilt. The elderly woman nodded, though her eyes brimmed with unshed tears. "I'm fine," she said softly. "But this isn't about me. It's about the way they treated me. They thought they could get away with mocking and disrespecting an old woman. And I won't let them." The captain turned back to Michael and Edward, his face hard as stone. "You're both dismissed from duty, effective immediately. You've disgraced this department and the badge you wear." Michael and Edward left the station in silence, their heads bowed. Their careers were over, but the lesson they had learned was one they would never forget. As for the captain's mother, she became a symbol of resilience and courage. Her story spread far and wide, inspiring others to stand up for their dignity and demand respect. She held her head high, her spirit unbroken, proving that even in the face of humiliation, strength and determination could prevail. This tale serves as a powerful reminder. Respect and compassion are not just virtues, they are necessities, especially for those entrusted with power and responsibility. Dear friends, if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul. Together, let's create a kinder world.